everyone. I'm Mary Ellen Heelan. I am a music therapist and I'm also a music historian. I'm fortunate enough to be able to provide music therapy for the clients at Independence Health and Therapy. And in one of my other lives, I am on the board of the McHenry County Historical Society. I'm a former history teacher and my research area is the music history of McHenry County. When I first moved out here, I discovered that there was really no information about where people went to dance, who the musicians were, and I knew that not everybody could be going into the city for their entertainment. So I began to do research. What I'm hoping we can do is to take a little whirlwind tour, and it will be whirlwind, just to give you a taste of some of the things that you might not have known about the music history of our county. And I'm also going to say, if you know anything, if you've been a musician, if you know somebody who has, if you know something about a venue here in the county, please get in touch with us. I would love to follow up with you. That's how we really collect information. It's a community effort. And I'd also like to say at this point, talk to people around you. Reminiscence, life review, for those of you who know Robert Butler, is something we all do. The older you get, the more likely you are to look back and think, well, let's see, did I deserve to live on the planet? And when you're going through hard times, as most of us are right now, it sometimes really helps to look back on really pleasurable experiences that you've had, and lots of those involve music. So let's listen to a couple of things and see if we can learn a little bit more about history. And by the way, if you're taking care of somebody or if you know somebody, even if somebody has memory loss, as you know, long-term memory stays with people. People don't have to remember everything. Write it down. If they start singing a song, if someone starts singing a song, I've had that happen often at Independence Health and Therapy. Somebody will start to sing a song, they'll know some of the lyrics, and it'll be like a scavenger hunt to find out what the song actually was and how it originated. And let's start with one of our local heroes, if you will. We have our very own celebrity composer, Egbert Van Alstyne. He's from Marengo, and he was born in 1878. He did a lot of his best work around the turn of the century. You might think that you don't know anything about him, but I'm thinking that you might recognize some of these songs. This particular number is called In the Shade of the Old Apple Tree. In the shade of the old apple tree, when the love in your eyes I could see, when the voice that I heard, like the song of the bird, seemed to whisper sweet music to me, I could hear the dull buzz of the bee, and the blossoms as you said to me, with a heart that is true, I'll be waiting for you in the shade of the old apple tree. These, if you want more information, one way that you can get it, right now the museum is closed, but if you go to our website, which is mchenrycountyhistory.org, you can find out all kinds of information about all sorts of things. So another one of the pieces that Egbert did was Pretty Baby. This is a case of where he got credit for something he probably didn't do. You know how sometimes you'll go to a movie and you will see somebody's listed as a cameo. Brad Pitt, for example, maybe, just as an example. You might see somebody listed as a cameo, and they think that that will help sell more tickets and that more people will come. Well, the same thing was true with Egbert. People figured that if he had his name on it, that they'd sell more sheet music. So see if you know this one. Everybody loves a baby, that's why I'm in love with you. Pretty baby, pretty baby. And I'd like to be your sister, brother, dad, and mother too. Pretty baby, pretty baby. Won't you come and let me rock you in my cradle of love, and we'll cuddle all the time. Oh, I wanna love and Marengo, forget Crystal Lake, forget Woodstock, Marengo was the happening town back in the day. There were lots of venues, there was manufacturing, and so it's not surprising that one of our local composers came from Marengo. Memories, memories, dreams of love so true. But let's talk a little bit about some of the early places where people went to dance. Started out with barn dances, but moved then into dance halls. One of those, let's just throw out a few, for example. Crystal Lake had the Hog Wrestle, otherwise known as the Crystal Lake Ballroom, but most people called it the Hog Wrestle. And the deal was that you could go on Friday night if you were a lady, and you could go stag, and you'd have a date for Saturday. It had a reputation for being one of the rowdier places around. Residents that I've met at retirement communities I've gone to have told me that their parents would not let them go. If you acted up, they would throw you into the lake. The Crystal Lake Ballroom, aka Hog Wrestle, was on the site of what is now the Lakewood Village Hall. So think about that the next time you go by. And do we have anybody from McHenry? Because if we do, one of the places that still exists is the Fox Pavilion. And it exists as the Just for Fun roller rink. If you happen to be coming up Route 31 from the south, just before you get to 120 on the right-hand side, you'll see Just for Fun roller rink, and it really doesn't look very different from the way the Fox Pavilion did. But I should mention at this point that we had a very colorful gangster history. It really surprised me when I moved out here because I think of us as being really law-abiding people. And we are, mostly. But back in the day, at the Fox Pavilion, the original Fox Pavilion, the story was that the security guard was kidnapped by a couple of wise guys who took him into the city for a ride, and while he was gone, they torched the place. So it was rebuilt, and on what was then called Route 12, but now we know as Route 31. Speaking of venues, I want to take a couple of minutes and mention the Nell Brothers. Nell's Ballroom in Johnsburg, when I first heard about it, I assumed that that was a woman's name, and I was wrong. No, it was one of the Nell Brothers. And it was located at what then became the Epic Deli, then became Tomasello's Bowling Alley, then became the China Bar. But it was a very well-known ballroom back in its day. Al, meanwhile, the brother, established his own place, and that was on 120 at the corner, at the intersection with Chapel Hill Road, right across the street from what is now Riverside Chocolate Factory. So the two of them were highly competitive, and both of their venues were successful in their day. And some of you from Algonquin might remember Simonini's, which there was a fire there. There was a really bad fire in 1974. The Iron Skillet was there as well. And the Columbia Dance Hall, which is on Main Street, lots of you are going to remember Vito Buffalo. Vito Buffalo had a meat market, and he was butcher by day and a musician at night, and for years and years he played around everywhere in the county. And that's a place that's still here. If you go, Dalzell's Jeweler is on the ground floor. I'm going to mention that a lot of the dance halls back in the day were upstairs, and the reason for that is because you couldn't smell the manure quite as badly. Every town practically had an opera house. Harvard had one. It was called the Pythian Opera House. And as you head up 14 and you head into Harvard, on the corner of what is now Shepherd Premier Senior Living, that used to be the Pythian Opera House. We should be lucky for our fire codes because a lot of the opera houses burned down. McHenry had one, Hebron had one, Solon Mills, towns we don't even have anymore, had them. It wasn't opera house the way we use the term. You had everything there. Opera house classed it up a little bit, but you'd have high school graduations, you could have loads of things there. And one of the opera houses, most of you know, in fact I think probably everyone who's watching the telethon right now is familiar with the Woodstock Opera House, so I won't spend a lot of time on that. But you might not know about the Marengo Opera House, which was considered very, very classy in its day. It still exists, as the BMO Harris Bank. That is where the Marengo Opera House used to be, on the 3rd floor. And it still exists, but you can't go up there. It's too much of a liability. They do still have a couple of the original seats you can see down in the lobby. But here's something that was sung every year on Memorial Day at the Marengo Opera House. And I got the words to this from yet somebody else I knew, and it's called Morning Land. I'm just going to sing a little bit of it. Oh, how light to the soul are its crosses, how easy our burdens to bear, when we think of that land over Jordan, and the joy that will crown us there. Oh, the bright morning land, the dear morning land, land where the sorrow is o'er, we shall sit beneath the ray of a golden summer day, where the shadows return no more. Some of you I know like polka dancing, and I wondered where people went to polka. And if you're from McCullum Lake or McHenry, as you head up, you make the turn onto McCullum Lake Road, at Ringwood and Martin Roads, you're going to see a sign for the Spoinia Barn. And if you drive through there, it looks a little bit like a ghost town, but there used to be big polka dances, and people used to come up from the city back in the 50s, and there used to be parties every Saturday night. So we have to at least have one polka. I've got it on very good authority that one of the numbers that was played at the Spoinia Barn was the Blue Skirt Waltz. There is a furniture store. It's called Strode's Furniture, and that used to be the Pabst Hall. And at one point, it was the biggest dance hall in the county. And I've seen posters for it. Women got in free. The men had to pay. Once again, it's up on the 2nd floor. The other thing is that people had to drive a long distance. And so a lot of places, Schaefer's, for example, became a combination tavern, bowling alley, gas station. There were all sorts of things that you would combine because people had driven a long way. So, thank you so much. And again, this is just a taste of the history of music, the very colorful history of music in McHenry County. Collect stories. Find out, especially throw some of these names out. If you want more information, I can give it to you. And if you're working with somebody who's from the county, if you're taking care of somebody who's from the county, ask them about this and see what they have to share with you. I think that you'll be fascinated by it. Thank you so much.